On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, an international passenger flight, took off from Kuala Lumpur bound for Beijing. Shortly after departure, the aircraft mysteriously disappeared from radar, leading to an inconclusive search. The incident remains a tragic, unsolved mystery. Investigators, the families of those on board, and even online enthusiasts continue their quest for answers. The recent resurgence of this case in the news is linked to the release of a new Netflix documentary, MH370, The Plane That Disappeared. This documentary features insights from investigators, scientists, journalists, and first-hand accounts from family members. Could it be that, after 9 long years, the mystery is finally on the verge of being unraveled? Join us today as we delve into the MH370 missing flight and recent discovery that reveals what happened to the flight. MH370 had 239 passengers and 12 crew members on board. At around 1:19 a.m., the aircraft made its final contact with air traffic control, saying, "Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9, good night." 3 minutes later, the plane disappeared. Despite extensive searches, neither the passengers nor the plane itself were ever found, and the black box recorder remains undiscovered. Despite numerous theories about its disappearance, authorities have been unable to determine what happened, leaving the families of the 239 victims uncertain about their loved one's fate. A 3-year search coordinated by Malaysia, China, and Australia, ending in January 2017, yielded no concrete conclusions about the missing flight MH370. This has led to various conspiracy theories about the fate of Boeing. Initially, the prevailing belief was that the plane had crashed. The Australian Transport Safety Bureau proposed a fatal drop in cabin pressure as one of the most plausible explanations for any plane disaster. Here are some more theories outlined in the documents. Number 1. MH370 pilot Zahari Ahmed Shah flew a suicide route. Since the plane disappeared, there's been a lot of talk about the pilot's possible involvement. Reports suggest that Captain Zahari Ahmed Shah was going through tough personal times in the weeks leading up to the plane's disappearance. Some say his wife and family left amid claims he was involved with another woman, a fellow pilot and long-time associate. Investigators looked into Shah's unusual behavior, noting a phone call from an unidentified woman before the flight. The family consistently denied any domestic issues. Aviation journalist Jeff Wise speculates that around 1 a.m. Shah flew over the South China Sea, sent a final signal, and then redirected the plane toward the Malaysian peninsula. Wise thinks Shah convinced a co-pilot to leave the cockpit and lock the door. Around 1:20 a.m., Shah deactivated all the aircraft electronics, making it vanish from radar, and changed its course. Shah stayed alone while the co-pilot stayed in the cockpit. It's believed Shah depressurized the cockpit, causing a drop in emergency oxygen, which would be a problem for passengers as the plane's oxygen generators work for only about 15 minutes. However, Shah had a more advanced oxygen mask, allowing him to control the plane until it ran out of fuel. After 6 hours, the plane's engine stopped and Shah descended, resulting in the death of everyone on board. Despite this theory's plausibility, Wise advises caution. While there have been cases of pilots harming passengers, none involved a 6-hour duration before a mass suicide. Number 2. Remote hijacking in an advanced act of cyber terrorism. In 2003, Boeing obtained a patent for a remote aircraft control system aimed at preventing potential hijackings. The patent outlined a continuous autopilot that pilots on board could activate. Sensors could be disabled through radio or satellite communications by airlines or government agencies if there were attempts to seize control of the cockpit. Once activated, this system would limit the pilot's actions, preventing interference with the automatic lock and ensuring that onboard personnel couldn't be coerced by an unauthorized individual. However, it's theoretically possible for ground-based criminals to hijack an aircraft using this technology. Boeing disagrees with this idea, stating that it hasn't implemented a proprietary system or any other technology for remotely controlling commercial aircraft. Additionally, Boeing is not aware of any commercial aircraft it produces that uses such technology. There's no evidence to suggest that the aircraft's control could have been or was remotely taken over, as this technology was not deployed on commercial aircraft. Number 3. Tomnod users suspect the aircraft crashed in the South China Sea. A group of online investigators, known as Tomnod users, uses a satellite imaging platform called Tomnod to search for a plane crash site. Cindy Hendry, one of the volunteers, spotted what she believed to be the wreckage of the plane in the South China Sea. She identified one piece as MH370's nose cone and others as parts of its fuselage and tail. Expressing her emotions, she said, "I cried because I knew someone had died there, because I knew that was part of the plane that meant that we're no longer alive, and that wasn't an answer their family members were looking for." Despite this, Malaysian authorities stuck to their belief that MH370 followed a different path, heading northwest toward the Malacca Strait and eventually crashing in the Indian Ocean. The true nature of what Tomnod discovered, whether it's parts of MH370 or not, remains uncertain. Theory number 4, American interception. One theory making the rounds suggests that during training exercises in the South China Sea, the American military intercepted MH370, leading to its initial loss of radar contact between Malaysian and Vietnamese airspace. French journalist Florence de Changi claims MH370 carried 2.5 tons of unscreened electronic devices, including highly sensitive US technology in surveillance, stealth, and drone technology. Notably, China had a keen interest in acquiring such technology, which could potentially explain the fate of MH370. Allegedly, the United States deployed 2 radar jamming planes with airborne warning and control systems on the night MH370 departed. Changi proposes these planes disrupted radar signals and instructed Shah to land. When the pilot persisted, Changi speculated that MH370 met its end through a missile strike or mid-air collision. However, it's essential to note that Changi lacks concrete evidence to support her theory, and it doesn't align with Inmarsat data projections. It's worth mentioning that Changi may be using this theory to promote her 2021 book, titled The Disappearing Act: The Empire Possible Keys of MH370. Number 5. Taken over by an uninvited passenger. Is it possible that someone, perhaps the initial passenger or a disgruntled crew member with a failed mission, could have infiltrated the aircraft, aiming to land, say, on Christmas Island, about 1,000 miles northwest of Australia? Philip Baum considers this theory the second most plausible after the pilot's demise. It involves pointing out a hidden area outside the flight deck door where a person could hide. This stowaway could also disable the transponder, making the aircraft disappear. While in many aviation incidents, former employees hold grudges against an airline, suggesting that such an individual might be responsible, there are several arguments against this scenario, making the likelihood very slim. The perpetrator would have needed access to the plane before it left Kuala Lumpur. Taking control of the plane required overcoming flight attendants, 227 passengers, and 2 pilots. Moreover, establishing a motive is challenging, as no terrorist group has claimed control of MH370 for political or propaganda purposes. Number 6. Collective of Russian cyber intruders. Another captivating hypothesis emerged in the Netflix series. Jeff Wise proposed that 3 Russian passengers positioned in proximity to an electrical hatch could have generated a diversion and then accessed the lower deck to take command of the plane. Rather than being redirected, Wise posits that it was transported to the former Soviet Republic of Kazakhstan. However, this theory was promptly refuted by Malaysia Airlines former crisis director, Fuad Saruji. According to Saruji, anyone gaining access to the hatch can deactivate the transponder and communication systems, but flying the aircraft from the avionics compartment is impossible. Number 7. Catastrophic system failure. The most likely scenario remains a catastrophic incident, such as a fire disabling a significant portion of the aircraft's equipment. This could prompt the pilots to alter the plane's course back towards the Malaysian peninsula, with the intention of making an emergency landing at the nearest airport. Satellite data supports the notion that the aircraft executed a turn, and analysts argue that there were no apparent reasons for the pilots to deviate from their original path. Some propose that faced with an emergency, a fire akin to one that occurred on a Boeing 777 jet at Cairo Airport in 2011 might have been the cause. In that incident, the fire was attributed to an issue with the first officer's oxygen mask supply tubing. Stewart's law, invoked in several recent air disasters, contends that the plane crashed following a cockpit fire, resembling the situation at Cairo Airport. Following the investigation into the Cairo incident, Egypt's Aircraft Accident Investigation Central Directorate issued its final report, revealing that the fire originated near the first officer's oxygen mask supply tubing. While the exact cause of the fire remained inconclusive, investigators identified a problem with the cockpit hose responsible for supplying oxygen to the crew during decompression. Subsequent to the 2011 fire, US aircraft owners received instructions to replace the system, but it remains uncertain whether Malaysia Airlines implemented this change. The question arises, if the intent was to crash the plane, why initiate a turnaround? The reversal suggests an attempt to land swiftly, indicative of an urgent response to an in-flight emergency. Which theory do you find plausible? Share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more videos.